Ashley, I am so excited for this session with you. We are talking all about a summer of self-care. And I think it's perfect that you and I are talking about this because you are a yoga teacher and self-care coach. You're also an entrepreneur. You're the host of the Yoga Magic podcast. So, Ashley, thank you for doing this with me and talking all things self-care today.
Oh my gosh. Thanks, Sydney. I'm excited. I'm excited to chat with you.
Me too. Me too. Okay, so I think a really good place to start is how do you define self-care? Because for all of us, I mean, I have found it's different for everybody.
hmm it's so different for everybody. And it's also become sort of this like weird being now. People talk about self-care as, through marketing and through just
Yeah.
like it's so buzzy, right? Like self-care is such a topic. However, it is a big deal. It's very important. And I think we're all just sort of like waking up to this. So I define self-care as the ability to take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. I mean, at the end of the day, our role is to keep this world, moving and taking care of other people, but we cannot do that if we're not in a good spot. And I think that's really where self-care comes in, but it's like weirdly hard to do that.
It is weirdly hard to do it. I had a really wonderful conversation with someone. Her name is Akia Red last year on the podcast. And she said something that like really stood out to me. She says, the purpose of you filling up your own cup is not so that then you can give to others. It's that anything that runs over after you filled your cup, that's what you give to others. You don't give your cup to other people.
Mhm.
And I literally looked at her when she said it and I was like, oh my God, for all this time, I thought taking care of myself was so that I could have something to give to others, but really it's for me first. And then the rest,
Mm,
the overflow is for somebody else. So what you just said
mhm,
so reminded me of that because I think when we talk about taking good care of ourselves, it can feel uncomfortable. Like, do I deserve this level of self-care? How do I even start to figure out to take care of myself? It has become such like a full-time job, I think, too, to figure all of this out.
And then you throw families in there, and I think I love that idea of like the cup runneth over, right?
Yeah.
And I think there are times where, especially if you have little ones, where you're just trying to keep them
Mhm.
alive, and so your job is often them first, and it's just it's often a stage. But I work with a lot of women, a lot of young moms who are kind of figuring this out. So I'm gonna share that with some of those clients. That's
Good.
great.
It's a good kind of like analogy, metaphor, visualization. I don't know, one of the three to
Mhm.
kind of keep in mind. And I know for what, like almost a decade, you've been really studying yoga and mindfulness and these practices to be able to tap into self care for yourself and then also for your clients. And so I'm curious, was self care something that came naturally to you, or was this like a muscle that you had to build for yourself?
Yeah, I love the idea of it as a muscle. Yes.
Hmm.
It used to come pretty easy to me. I think with being in a young professional setting, I was like, okay, like, yeah, I have time. I can do this. And then when I started to build a family, when I had kids, that I kind of felt like I got hit by a bus. Like I no longer knew how to do that, like what it meant to take care of myself. So I really had to relearn. And granted, like I had all the tools. I was teaching yoga, I was meditating, I was doing the things, but that it wasn't nourishing me in the way that I really needed right then and there. And so I had to learn to listen to what my body needed. What was my intuition telling me about what would fill me up so that I could really, really take care of my family and now ultimately, my students and my clients.
Mm.
Sometimes it was, taking a nap if that was possible. Other times it was like maybe hiding in the bathroom for 5 seconds. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
weird. It doesn't have to be anything big. So it was a muscle that I needed to relearn.
Mhm. I love what you said that you had all the tools, you had all the practices, but it wasn't nourishing you in the way that you needed. I think that is such an important point because the truth is you can try and do everything, but if it doesn't nourish you, if it doesn't fill you up, if it doesn't rejuvenate you, then it's not your thing and that's okay. So I think even learning that for yourself of knowing like, I got to just find the thing that clicks for me. For me it's been like a journey of releasing judgment, self-judgment, pressure. Like you said, self-care is so marketed. So being able to kind of do that journey of trial and error, I love this focus of what will actually nourish you. Oh, I love
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. And, talking about the kind of the pressure, there's so much
Mhm.
shoulding in self-care. You
So
should be
much.
meditating. You should take a bubble bath. You should get your nails. I was like, but also, I don't want to do those things. It's not
Mhm.
helping me right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know part of what your work too is about how we can turn our everyday routines, what we do in our lives, into self care. Can we talk a little bit about that? Like, what does that mean? Turning our everyday routines into self care that we can actually probably enjoy and tap into and get something out of.
Yeah, yeah. I like to work in layers. I learned this from a very smart friend who deals with the psychology of self-care, and we talk about the layers of self-care. And that first layer kind of being just like your basic needs, right? Like going to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom. Like this is such a funny concept to bring up all the time, but like I'm like looking at you, like you're a very accomplished, like you're doing all the things. How often do you wait to go to the bathroom until it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna pee my pants? Like
Honestly, too often
I
because
know.
you figure like, oh, I'll do it in a second. And then next thing you know, it's been an hour and you're like, I didn't get up to
Yep.
go.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're all guilty of this. Yeah.
And this is an issue. And I think this really shows us that we're not
Yeah.
prioritizing our own well being,
No.
eating real foods, drinking enough water, getting the adequate sleep that we can with the situation that we have, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, I'll just do one last email at 10 p.m. at night. Like, no,
But
we
like, why?
right? I
Yeah.
know. And I
Yeah.
still have trouble with this. I think this is a part of the process. So identifying what your baseline is, right? Like what are the basic needs that you have? What do you need to get in the mindset of putting your own well-being in the front of others is hard. It's hard work. So I always start there. That
Mhm.
next layer is really those more like daily practices, like potentially a gratitude practice right away in the morning or taking 10 minutes of meditation, prayer, what it is that really does give you that moment of respite. I love to tack it on to other habits. So I know a lot of people talk about habit stacking, where if
Mhm.
you're going to make your coffee in the morning, you do it every day. You might as well do a gratitude practice as a part of that routine. And then it becomes, it comes a part of your regular process. So I like to get really detailed with individuals. And that's why my show exists, is to give people tons of different ideas on how
Yeah.
to self-care so they can try it on. They can see how it works in that like middle stage. And then I think that like top layer is like your bougie days at the spa, or like going for a lunch with friends, or like things that are just like a little bit extra. They're not necessarily every day. But getting a healthy balance of all those things and being okay with prioritizing yourself.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, so many things I want to say in response, but I love this idea of starting with just your everyday basic needs because we go from 0 to 100 real quick with self
Right.
care. We go
Right.
to that top extra level. We think that's what self care is. Taking care of your needs in the moment, self care. Going to the bathroom when you need to go, self care. Drinking enough water, self care. But we don't look at those things through that lens. We kind of, and I don't want to say we take it for granted, but you're on autopilot. It's so mindless. Like you're not focused on those things. So I love this idea of starting with your basic everyday needs, then focusing on things that you can add in that will add greater comfort or nourishment for you. And then the top layer is like these extra things, like these bougie things. I love this. It's about breaking it down. And you know what? It feels more approachable. It feels
Mhm.
like I could do this rather than, oh my God, I got to carve out time for like a bath that I don't even know if I'm going to enjoy. No, no. So I love this. I love this.
Good. Yeah. It can be really accessible. And I think it sometimes is overwhelming to think about the options, right? When they're presented to us or
Yeah.
someone is shooting, or we're looking at these people in our life that you think on Instagram like totally have it all together, and they're working out and they're getting their nails done and they're doing all the things. It's like, oh my gosh, like I should be doing that too. When in fact, you know what? That might not be at all what you need. I
Hmm.
really do. I use spirituality and and astrology and sort of all these like fun woo ways to get really niche for people. But it just, again, it's so personalized for
Mhm.
everybody.
It's really personalized. And I have found too that in order to really, I think, embark on a self care journey that fit me, I had to shift my mindset around self care. I'm curious if you had to do something similar or what your thoughts are around our mindset when it comes to self care. Because I think that's a big issue or something that, not issue, but something that I think we all kind of tackle in the moment.
I agree. Yeah, I love this question. Mindset is so important to
Hmm.
anything that we're doing in a regular day. The shift for me really came. I talk a lot about, about becoming a mother because it really did help me see things. One, that I didn't know how to do it when I actually like needed to
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
care of
Oh
myself.
my
But
gosh.
two, when I thought I have two daughters, there's 3 and they're 5, and I want
Mm-hmm.
them to be like bosses, like they're gonna just rock the world, right? Do whatever they want. When I had
Hmm.
to think about what, they mimic everything that I do. They see me as this like goddess, which I am, right?
You
And
are. Oh, I love it. You
we
are.
all are. We all are.
Oh.
And I have to show them what it looks like to take care of myself. Like, if they were to see me constantly running out of steam or overwhelmed or maybe, like upset because I didn't do what I needed that day, they wouldn't do that themselves. I wanted to show them that, like, this is really important to take care of yourself. I want you to be well. And like when that clicked, that like, oh, like they see what I do and they mimic what I do, I better start doing it. It became so much less selfish in my mind. I
Hmm.
felt no longer felt that guilt. And I was truly able to give to them, plus, all of these other people in all these other ways. So taking some away of that guilt felt really good.
Hmm. I love this because often we feel a lot of guilt about taking good care of ourselves. We feel like we should be spending the time in a different way. Do I deserve this? So, just even beginning that process of removing that lens of guilt for yourself and knowing that even just for you to show up as yourself, not your best self, but just show up as yourself in any
Yes.
given moment, I think it means you have to take care of yourself. And it goes back to starting with self care, I think, at that base level that you talked about, and looking at self care as a non negotiable as opposed to an afterthought. For
Hmm.
me, that was a huge mindset shift as it's a non negotiable. I got to put it in my calendar. It's something I have to do. It's not an afterthought. It's not when everything else is done. It's here right now. It's super important for me and my well being.
I agree. I agree. That's yeah. And I think too, picking a few non-negotiables,
Mm,
sometimes I like,
yeah.
people will be like, let's do like 10, right? Like these are my 10 non-negotiables for a day. And it's
No,
like, whoa, okay, whoa.
no.
Maybe pick like 2 or 3 in a day, maybe even one. One. I need 5 minutes of prayer or meditation. And that's gonna set me up. Maybe it is longer, but like identifying like truly
Mhm,
what do you need consistently every day. I love that. Yeah.
mhm. I love this idea too of starting small because when you were like, some people want to pick 10 things. And I was like, yes, but oh my God, overwhelming. Like,
Right.
especially when you're somebody that's used to taking care of others and not necessarily taking care of yourself, doing so many things at once is like, I can't. That's like a surefire way to guarantee you will not start practicing greater self care because you're overwhelming yourself. So I love this advice of starting small. Is there anything else you want to share with people, either tips or advice when it comes to just beginning to incorporate greater self care or looking at their everyday rituals, routines, just beginning to utilize that as greater self care for themselves.
Hmm. I think give yourself grace. It's try stuff on, see how it goes, and let go what doesn't work for you. I like to recommend give it 5 days. 5 days,
Mm.
see how it feels. And this is intuition practice, right? Like this is listening to yourself about, yeah, I kind of like that, but it's not a for sure. So I'm
Mm.
gonna maybe move on to the next thing, and really getting in tune with all of those senses with your real joy, right? Like seek the joy in this
Literally seek the
experience.
joy. Yeah, seek it in your
Yes.
self care.
Hmm.
That's beautiful. I love this idea of giving yourself grace. We don't give ourselves enough grace. And I feel like as we enter this summer season. The world is opening up, at least for us in the United States, it is in a really big, profound way. And I just feel like we're going to be so consumed with doing things we haven't done over the last year. And
Yes.
I've been thinking a lot about like, how am I going to feel? I have all these new routines and rituals and things that I do because I've been home. And now I'm going to have the opportunity to be out and see friends and do different things, making my self care still a priority in this new season that's not only summer, but also this new season of re entering the world. I'm not going to lie, Ashley, I have felt very nervous. I have
Mm,
been feeling like, how am I going to do all of this? I'm curious how you've been feeling
mm.
with this new shift and change that's coming too, as it, pertains to self care.
Mhm. It's such a good, thought right now. Sydney,
Yeah.
actually, another friend did an episode on this, like, how are we re-immersing ourselves? I don't know yet. I'm looking
Yeah.
at my schedule, literally right before we hopped on here. I was looking at my schedule and I was thinking, like, what am I gonna cancel? Because I can't do this much. All of a sudden, it got really busy really fast.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, oh, I can do these appointments again, or I can see this friend, or like my kids can do these activities. And we got into a really good groove about how much we could handle, and all of a sudden I think it's gotten a little bit chaotic, and so I'm
Mhm.
taking a step back and doing some canceling. I think the best approach to this is to think about what you're letting back in, right? Like, what you've created, this like harmonious bubble theoretically
Mhm.
during this time.
Yeah.
What are you allowing back into your schedule? And let's just hope that it really does fill up your cup, setting those
Mm.
boundaries, listening to that intuition about, like, this is what I need, this is what I don't need. I think we still do kind of have this like weird excuse with COVID, and like, if you don't want to see somebody, you don't have to see them. It's
No.
okay.
No, you don't. I love this idea of asking yourself, what am I allowing back in this time? And what are you letting back in? What are you allowing? What are you excited to welcome back in? For me, like the measure is that level of excitement. So seeing friends again, I feel super excited.
Hmm.
Going to a big barbecue with people that I don't particularly enjoy spending time with, but some of my friends are there, I'm gonna skip it. You know what I mean? So
Yes,
it's about, I think,
yes.
that barometer of yourself for yourself of what is going to bring me joy, what is going to excite me, what is going to nourish me. I think the last year has shown us we can and we should. This is a good should though. We can and we should create boundaries for ourselves around our self
Hmm.
care. And part of that self care is those boundaries and not letting overwhelm be the barometer or the measuring stick of, oh my God, wait, I actually need to pull back. Doing things, along the way so that you don't necessarily reach that point of burnout or overwhelm or chaos, like pure chaos. Cause if
Hmm.
your schedule looks like mine right now, is a lot. And I'm trying to figure it all
It's
out. So I love what you
yeah.
shared. Am I excited? What am I allowing back in? What am I allowing
Yeah.
back in?
Mhm, mhm. Those boundaries are real communication of your self-worth. I think, like,
Mhm.
we're communicating when we impede on our own boundaries. And so, yeah, everybody look at that calendar. Let's bring it back to
Literally, like,
check.
as you're listening to me and Ashley, as you're watching us right now, like, whip out your calendar and start looking at all the things that you put on there, and is this going to make me joyful, happy, excited? Am I looking
Mhm.
forward to it? If you have an ounce of dread, red market, cancel, goodbye.
Yeah, yeah.
Just, I'm curious, you had mentioned earlier you really have tapped into your spirituality when it comes to self-care with astrology. I'd love it if you would share with us, some of the tools that you use in your life, um, both to bring on greater self-care for yourself, but, also with people that you work with as well.
Yeah. I do love the spirituality piece, and you really hear that woven into my show, Yoga Magic, and
Mhm.
yoga in itself is very spiritual. So that's kind of where I came from in terms of my personal practices. And the tools that I really like to use for myself and working with others, meditation is often at the top of the list because it is so simple yet so profound. And when I say simple, I don't mean easy. I think the practice itself is simple to do on your own time. You don't have to pay for it, but it's not easy. And I think that's why it's so important. So
Mhm.
meditation always is right at the top. I love to use astrology as a self-study tool. I use it with clients because it helps me get to know people without spending a ton of time, like, poking around their life. I can look at their chart and I can say, okay, wow, like, here's where you shine the brightest. Here's your emotional well-being. Like, here's how you're motivated. Here's how you communicate, all these different ways. And it's so crazy spot on. Like, it always
Mhm.
just kind of blows my mind. So I use astrology as a tool, looking at the natal birth chart to give people ideas to sift through like we said, the millions and millions of different ways that you can self-care, and bubble up maybe 10 or so that like seem to really resonate with this person and their natal chart, and then give that as a suggestion, right?
Mhm.
um so those are like those are at the top of the list for me. And the other thing is that variety. I feel like it constantly changing, like day to day, week to week. What am I interested in? Like, what feels good? Just that tool of mixing it up
Mhm.
feels really good for me. For someone else, that might not be the case. But I love to learn. I imagine you do too. I think if you're in podcasting, like, it's so fun to talk to other people and learn new things. And that just gives me like some freedom to be like, cool, yep, I'm going to mix this all up. What do I need listening to that
Mhm.
intuition?
Mhm. I love that you use astrology in this way to really tailor self care for yourself and then for others, because we talked about this at the very beginning. It's like we see so much out there about what self care is and what it should look like. But truthfully, it's going to be unique to you, your needs, your interests. Do you like variety? Do you like consistency? I mean, it's going to depend on the person. All right. Well, now I have to ask you, what is your sun, moon, and rising?
Ooh, yes. And I want to
I
ask
just
you
like, I have to
that. So I
ask.
love
Yes.
like
Yes.
Cancer sun. So I'm like a mama bear to the max. Capricorn moon, which is a
Mm.
full moon. So total opposite, which means a little bit heavy inside, which makes sense. And then rising, Aries rising. So like very over the top. I'm like, well, not over the top, I shouldn't say, but just like very initiating.
Mhm. Mhm.
What are yours?
So Aquarius sun, Taurus moon, and Cancer rising.
Ooh, I feel the Cancer. I feel that. Like you can just, I think if you have Cancer in your chart, people just like want to share more,
Mhm,
especially as a
mhm.
Cancer rising. I bet people just like bring you all the good things, and like you listen and like are there for them. Like that's amazing.
It's funny you say that because I've really been like that my whole life. Like everyone will just tell me everything, especially my
Mhm.
friends. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's a lot of info, but I love
It's a
it. Like I
lot.
really love being able to sit with somebody and process and hear what's going on, which is probably why I have a podcast. I'm not gonna lie. It's probably very hand in hand. I love this.
Yeah. And your Aquarius is
Mhm,
sun is so cool because Aquarius is the water bearer. So
mhm,
people, again, may bring you all these things because you're a nurturer, but you aren't going to embody it like say somebody else who potentially has like a water sun or tons of water in their chart. You hold space for people. That's literally like Aquarius energy is like, here, I'm here for everybody. So
mhm, mhm.
oof, girl, you're a helper. I love this.
I This is not the first time someone has told me that, and it's not the first time I had that aha moment of, "Wow, this podcast is so aligned." Like,
Mhm.
it makes so much sense. I'm curious too, as we enter this summer season and it's, warmer, the sun is out longer, the days are longer. Is there any self-care that you love to practice specifically in this summer season? I'll share mine, but I wanna hear from you first.
Ooh, I love this. God, I have to think about like the shift in summer. Being outside. So I live in Minnesota, and it is
Mhm.
frigid in the winter, right?
Oh
Like
my
you,
god, you are in Minnesota? You've got some real cold winters then, my friend.
yeah,
It's
it's rough.
bad. Oh,
It's rough.
man.
So we're outside from the beginning of the day. I love to get up. I got a hammock this year. I don't know how do you guys say it? Like hammock,
Hammock. Hammock? I
hammock,
don't know.
hammock. I got one on like just kind of on a whim, and I put it in the backyard, and I'm obsessed with meditating in there. So just as much time as I can spend outside, getting the girls outside, getting us, we go, we bike to the park and we're doing all these things. we take full advantage of nature in the summer. And man, sleeping, like you just sleep so much better. I don't know. It's simple, but like hugely beneficial.
Mm.
What are
Well,
yours?
I'm in Los Angeles, so we've got sometimes it feels like a dose of summer all year round. We don't have
Yeah.
consistent seasons, but for me, there's just something that I really crave and look forward to. It's this like just putting your feet on the ground in the summer and feeling the warmth. And granted, when it's like over 100, you don't want to do that because that's a surefire way to burn your feet.
Right.
But I really love just like being able to walk barefoot and grounding myself in that way and feeling the warmth of the sun and just being outside. And there's just, there's an energy around it that I just really love and I really crave it all year round. And for me, like that is self-care, like just allowing myself to get a little bit of vitamin D that I don't
Mm.
get year round, being at home or being in the office, working and not having that luxury all the time. So that for me is probably the biggest. And I would say time with people that I really love for me is self-care as well, and so that opportunity for connection, and now we're gonna get it, and just having good boundaries around it,
Yeah.
but having it for me is just feels so good. I'm very excited. I'm
Oh,
super excited.
yes.
And also,
Heck
this is
yeah.
so random, but, like, making things in the kitchen that are, like, nourishing and, for
Mm.
the hot weather, like, I love making homemade popsicles. Like, this is so
Oh,
random.
yes.
This is so, so random, but, like, I don't do this year round, so, like, for me, it's just little things that, like, feel good in the moment and also remind you about being a kid. For me,
Mm.
that feels so good in the summer.
Oh, I love, yeah, cooling practices in the summer. I mean, like through the lens of Ayurveda, which is the science, sister
Yeah,
science to yoga, like that's
yeah.
very much what we should be doing is in the hot months, cooling our bodies down. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Is there anything we didn't touch on when it comes to self-care in this season? I wanna make sure we get all of this good stuff in, but I feel like we've really talked so much about it. Like, I just love this idea of starting small and starting with things that you do every day, and
Hmm.
to really just begin to nourish yourself because you know what? It doesn't have to be a big grand thing, or it can be if you want it to be, but starting small just I don't know, after last year feels really, really good and aligned to me.
Yeah. I just think that like it's okay to be thinking about this, everybody. Self-care is so important.
It's okay to be thinking about it. It's like we have to give ourselves permission sometimes, like to just
Hmm.
even step into our own self care. Like we
Hmm.
deserve it. This Ashley and I are giving you the permission that you don't need, but also may need. We're just telling you you can do it. You can practice it. You deserve it,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
in this season. Oh, Ashley, I have loved sitting down and having this conversation with you. I would love it if you would share with everybody where they can find you, connect, tune into your beautiful podcast. And then I know you're sharing something I think is very cool with everybody who's attending this summer series. So I'll let you take it away.
Yes. Well, thanks, Sydney. This was super fun, and I'm excited to connect with your audience. Well, the cool freebie, if you'd like to take advantage of this, is a morning routine for every zodiac sign. So you can use it for your sun, your moon, your rising, kind of like whatever you resonate with. But there are a couple suggestions for every sign as to how you would treat your morning routine or how you want, maybe you want to try that. Again, the idea is to take away some of that decision fatigue and just give you a bunch of ideas. And then if you'd love to, I'd love to connect with anyone that is interested in learning a little bit more about this. So my show is called Yoga Magic, and I touch on a number of different self-care practices with experts, with people that are doing the work. And then I just share my own experiences as well. And then I work individually with clients one-on-one to really be an accountability buddy in this self-care journey. So we use astrology to really set it up and see, okay, what should we try? And then I am right there with them, cheering them on to make this actually stick. And yeah, I have one-on-one spots open all the time if you want to do this, if you want to dive in a little bit further.
I love it. All right. Everything is going to go right underneath this video. So, everybody, check it out. Connect with Ashley. Get this beautiful guide to crafting your ideal morning routine through tapping into your personal astrology. Ashley, I have loved this conversation. Thank you for coming on Seek the Joy Summer Series and being part of this self care in the summer. I think I'm just so excited to hear how it goes for everybody. So, if you're tuning in right now, drop in the chat what self care practices are you going to give yourself the opportunity to tune into and tap into this season. I can't wait to hear what everybody is going to do in the world of self care. So, Ashley, thank you. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.